So welcome everyone to our school counselor community of practice. This is being recorded. And I noticed someone said, oh, it's being recorded, I'll watch it later. But a lot of what we're doing is in the breakout rooms. And so that unfortunately does not get recorded. So we may either need to reconsider recording or not doing breakout rooms. But just wanted to thank you for those who filled out the survey last time asking what you needed. It was really interesting to see the wide range of what folks would like support in. And so we're going to be going over those results a little bit today, but we're going to have a lot of time to just connect and support each other. So I'm going to go ahead and start with sharing my screen before we do introductions. Not leave, share screen, there we go. Okay. So our meeting norms are, as always, to come as you are, to take space and make space, and use the chat to ask questions and engage. And we'd love it if you leave your cameras on, especially because we don't have a ton of people today. So that would be great for us to really connect. So our agenda today is our usual welcoming ritual, which is Halloween themed today. We're going to review the results from September, and from that, I've worked out a couple questions because it really seems like we have a lot of very experienced, well-versed with a broad and wide depth of understanding of counseling and different things. And we've got a lot of new counselors that have like refreshed training that us old folks didn't have, but are looking for support of how to kind of set up a counseling program. So I think that we have a lot of talent just within our own group to share with each other. So that's kind of what our focus is today, and then always end with an optimistic closure. So in our welcoming ritual today, we are going to put you into breakout rooms, and you have two questions. The first is, what was your favorite childhood Halloween costume? And explain any story around that. And what was your most embarrassing Halloween costume? And that can be as an adult as well. So Shalane, if you can go ahead and put us into breakout rooms, and we'll come back after about like 6-ish, 7-ish minutes. So please introduce yourself and then answer these questions.
Just a moment.
Okay. And welcome to everyone that has just joined us. We're going to be going into breakout rooms to introduce ourselves and answer the two questions you see on the screen. What was your favorite childhood Halloween costume? And what was your most embarrassing Halloween costume?
Rooms opening now. Welcome back. I expect everyone will return in just a few seconds.
Welcome back, everyone. Did anyone have a particularly stunning Halloween costume that they would like to share as a child? Who are you pointing at, Kate?
I don't want to put her on the spot, but I feel like Katrina, you really should share. It's such a good story if you're willing.
All right, I'll share. My costume answers both questions. When I rode horses growing up, and so we used to go to these like local fun shows, and they'd have a Halloween inspired one where they'd have a costume contest on your horse. And one year I dressed up as a ladybug, and my horse was the tree. So we stuck all these like branches in the saddle and stuff. And when we all lined up at the end to get judged, all the other horses started eating the costume and the trees. So it was like a really fun costume, but also a really funny moment.
Okay, that one's gonna be really, really hard to beat. Okay, that's pretty cool. Anyone else want to share? a favorite?
Some of you already heard this because of the School-Based Mental Health Collaborative. I think it was Sarah already heard it, but I got to wear Joe Montana's jersey he wore in the Super Bowl because it was hanging in Adolph Gasser's, which is a camera store in San Francisco. And my dad is a photographer, so he went to the owner and said, "Hey, my kid wants to be a football player for Halloween. Can I borrow that shirt?" The owner was like, "If it gets ruined, you're dead." But yes. And so I went as Joe Montana. I think it was like 85 or 86, like whatever, right after they won the Super Bowl. But huge Joe Montana jersey, but his actual jersey. And then my dad took a picture of me and then got Joe Montana to sign it. So I had a huge photo of me.
Oh my God.
At, all-time GOAT, by the way. Just
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else want to share? Okay. One of my favorite ones is I was an adult. I was not a child, but I went as Tippi Hedren with the birds. So I wore a suit, like a light blue suit, and I had fake birds attached to me with blood. That was a fun one. Really uncomfortable though. The birds kept trying to fly off. So, so thank you for that. I'm gonna go back up. Stop that for a second. Go back to sharing. Share. There we go. Okay. So thank you all for those who completed the survey from September. And this is the results of what people, wait, here it is. Sorry, let me get right to the right part. Where was it? It was, what do you need right now? Oh, okay. So this is it. So I just wanted to show you the different, the variety of what folks are looking for right now. So anything from relevant PD to several people said they or have talked to me separately about needing help getting their supervisor to like buy in more to SEL. And then a lot of it was either like I'm a new counselor and would love support, kind of building up my program. And we have a lot of folks who've been at it for a while that I think could be a good resource as well. But the new ones have learned stuff in school that we never learned and vice versa. So I think that there's, if you look at some of the other things that people were looking for, we're looking for a community. We're looking for a way to connect and to go through this. So there was just a lot of different topics. So there's not any specific clear, this is the one thing we all want to do. So let me stop sharing. Oh, okay. Move this. Okay. So what I'd like us to do, get away. Okay. So I think collaboration is the key, and that we probably need to get a little more creative with how we connect as school counselors, because a lot of us work in multiple sites, and even though we really are kind of narrowing this down to 1 hour instead of an hour and a half, it's still hard for a lot of folks to get to. So I'd like us to think today of different ways we could support each other outside of just this once a month thing. But this was a quote I found useful, because a lot of times we also feel alone in our sites or in our buildings, and that it's just kind of us fighting the good fight. So one piece of the log creates a small fire adequate to warm you up. Add a few more pieces to blast an immediate bonfire large enough to warm up your entire circle of friends. Needless to say that individuality counts, but teamwork dynamites. And given what we're experiencing in our world right now, we need some dynamiting. So I'd like us to get sent into breakout rooms. And what I'd like for us to do is to share an area of expertise that you can share with others, even if this is your first time being a school counselor at a site. Like, you have knowledge that other people, that no one else on this call has. So to talk about what is an area of expertise that you have, and then what is an area that you would like to learn more about. I've developed a roster of different speakers and presenters that can come speak to this group, but I want to make sure I'm hitting like most of the topics we want to hit. So given the number we have, Shalene, if we could get put into 2 different groups randomly for the counselors, and to talk about something you feel like you're an expert in with anything related to school counseling, and then something that you would like to learn more about. And we're going to take a good chunk of time to have this discussion.
Rooms are opening now.
Thanks.
You should have received an invitation to go to a breakout room.
All right. Hi, welcome back. I didn't get to say hi and introduce myself, but hi, Molly Hendricks, Coordinator of School Safety and Risk Prevention at the County Office of Ed. We're recording, some new people came in, but we were in breakout rooms while some of you new folks came in, talking about what kind of expertise we bring to the field, and also what are expertise that you have, and then what are some of the areas that you'd like to learn more about, and really like specifics. So I really would like an opportunity to take right now to share out. If you didn't get a chance to be in a breakout room, feel free to think about those questions and also share out. But I'd love a share out of what you learned from a colleague, and also really to hone in on what you would like to learn more about, information you want to learn more about. I'm going to be taking notes so we can actually bring this to life. What are the areas, thank you, Shalane, areas of expertise?
I'll go. I think my area, I mentioned my area of expertise is time management. I've been counseling for 27 years. And of those 27, 15, I was a college counselor. So I did academic and college counseling, both of those. What I found very interesting in our breakout session is what I don't feel comfortable, not comfortable, I want to learn more about is social emotional learning and the mental health piece. And we were fortunate enough to have a counselor in our group that is actually implementing that program in their school. And so it was very insightful. Looks like it's a lot of time, time consuming, training the teachers and so forth. But we have a coordinator from our district that's coming in to do that. So thank you. I appreciate that, Connor, your input. It was very, very, very helpful and a little scary. But thank you.
Definitely scary. Thank you. And thanks for asking me questions. That was nice.
Awesome. Marion, where, what school are you at?
I'm with South San Francisco High School, South San Francisco School District.
Yes, you do have a coordinator that handles that.
We just hired her.
Yes, I'm in touch with her. We've become best friends since I do a lot of the SEL stuff. All right. And what about somebody else? Anybody else?
I can just say something real quick that I didn't get a chance to share is I've been doing SEL lessons in the classroom for the elementary schools I work at. Unfortunately, I don't have time to do everybody's classroom because I'm split between 2 sites, but the SEL lessons have been very telling of where our students are at. And what I mean by that is because we've been focusing on traits like kindness, empathy, kind of similar to what Connor shared in our group. But because it's like an SEL focus, sometimes when we're discussing these things, how the kids respond and the things they say really give you a very telling window into kind of where they're at, what's going on in their life. And I think some of the things they're carrying, back with them from the past couple of years. And so it's been it's been a very interesting thing to observe and kind of go from there.
What are you seeing? I mean, I know what everybody has called me and emailed me about what they're seeing, crying for help. But what are you particularly seeing?
It's not necessarily just one thing. some of the responses will be extremely mature. Some of the responses will be extremely out there. And so you just kind of redirect it. Maybe it's because when it's like a less of an academic lesson, they feel like they can kind of tap into those interesting responses. I haven't really been able to connect with all the teachers to see if they say the same types of things in the general ed lessons. And so that's my next step.
And what school are you at? Or school
I
district?
am at Fox and Cipriani in Belmont Redwood Shores.
Okay. Katrina, go for it.
So I was wondering, I know that the elementary schools, some of them have been talking about how they're integrating SEL school-wide and having it in classes. I'm wondering if there are any of the high schools or high school districts that have that, because it's a different challenge with the high schools where you have all these different teachers, different subjects, teachers that don't feel comfortable doing it, trying to do the trainings, trying to figure out what curriculum will reach high school students. So I was wondering if there are any high schools out there that have a tier 1 SEL that they're implementing.
Are there any on the call? No, but yes, Katrina, there are. Jefferson Union High School District is implementing Connect with Kids. It's the same SEL Tier 1 intervention that Sequoia Union has access to for free, covered through the grant that I oversee. So it's a $6 million grant. It's the same grant that Connor uses for his SEL. So it's, yes, some high schools are doing it. Advisory periods tend to be where they're most used in a high school setting. And what else is Jefferson? Jefferson is, it's difficult, but as behavior gets more and more off kiltered, or as we were seeing, I mean, basically what we're seeing is the symptoms of trauma coming up and displaying in our classrooms. So they're doing that. They're also using another program for a tier 2 approach for all 9th graders and 10th graders. And that is actually going better than, it's more easily implementable because of like the freshman sophomore teams, like, because you've got those, when they're in that age range, they are generally have the same teachers. And so all the teachers can communicate. They don't have so many options of, different English classes, different math classes, different, where the levels of where they're at. So it's a little easier freshman year. I can connect you with Melissa Ambrose if you want, Katrina. She's the wellness coordinator for Jefferson, in charge of rolling out Connect with Kids.
Yeah, and you know what, I'm actually even looking on their website. So thank you for letting me know about them.
Yeah, and Shayna Karashima is your contact, your MTSS coordinator. She and I are the ones trying to start Connect with Kids in your district.
Yeah, we have a task force right now.
Yep,
it just all takes time. So we're just thinking of something right now as the task force comes up with something district-wide of what we can just do at each site meanwhile.
So if you want to do it at your site, you can. You don't have to wait for your task force to get on board. I've paid for this last year and I'm paying for it this year. So it's paid for. So I'd love for you guys to use it. All right, anybody else? Colin, can I pick on you? Connor, not Colin, sorry. Connor, can I pick on you?
I mean, everybody does. I'm just kidding. Yeah, totally.
No, that's why we became counselors, right? We were all bullied.
Exactly.
But the Pacifica School District started out last year implementing caring school communities, and they've been really intentional in what they've been doing this year. And do you want to talk a little bit about that implementation of the SEL?
Yeah, it's pretty great. So this is my first year here, so I was kind of jumping in. And so there are a lot of new staff here as well, so they're kind of just jumping in. Jay also works in my district, so he could share a bit about this as well. But I shared this with my breakout group, but this classes that are implementing this material, they have like weekly lessons spelled out by day in this program. The ones that are using circles to have everyone share and communicate with one another in like 5 words or less, then those classes have a lot stronger connections with each other. They're sharing in class more and more engaged overall, fewer conflicts. And then we're also getting training next Wednesday to really better understand how to implement this where we're at in our school. So there's a late start way to implement it. The teachers that haven't used it have like a 2-week layout of how to catch up, which is awesome. So it's really for everybody, bringing restorative practices into the classroom, having material straight to the teacher's hands, like, okay, use this or ask me how to use it with you, because if you're not using this material, then we're kind of struggling to meet the needs of all our students, the emotional needs and also the communication skills. So
Great. And Jay, what school in Pacifica are you at?
Yeah, I'm at a Valamar school,
Okay.
which is a kindergarten through 8 school site. And yes, as Connor mentioned, every single teacher has been provided with it. It's very, very scripted. There's, lessons. So there's a lot of material. Teachers don't need to invent the wheel. It's already there for them. They just need to implement the lessons. And yeah, in a similar way, most of our teachers will definitely do morning circles with the class, and it could be something simple that lasts for 10 or 15 minutes, but even if it's just I've observed it in some of the younger grades where they'll literally sit around in a nice circle on the carpet and everybody will go around and say good morning. It's sort of like morning greetings and check in. So I definitely think there's value in that. Yeah, one of the natural challenges in this particular school site is we don't have an advisory period, and there are 9 different grade levels in the school. So content-wise, it's hard to have one to keep everybody on the same page. But no, teachers have definitely been given time during staff meetings. In fact, at our most recent staff meeting, our principal gave all the teachers 30 minutes of uninterrupted time to only talk about caring school communities and to write down for their grade level a short-term goal that they're going to be able to accomplish by the time we have our next staff meeting. And then we're going to revisit it then and see whether they were able to do that. And we also have district-wide training happening next week on the topic. So all the teachers will have more training. So
I think that's really, thank you. And I know it really well through the grant. And actually my kids attend a school in Pacifica, not your two, so don't worry. But they're at Sunset Ridge and they come home talking about, what they talked about in morning circle and closing circle. And one of my kids was the spotlight student of the week, and was really excited about being able to tell his friends in his class, who he was and what he was about. And interesting as a parent perspective of you don't want to bring pictures of me and your mama? Why don't you? And then it was wait, you're getting to that age where you're kind of embarrassed by your parents. Great, that's awesome. So, but it's cute to see and sweet to see how it impacts kids who might not even really need SEL, right? That they haven't experienced trauma and they have 2 counselors as parents, so they're maybe they have experienced trauma, I don't know, but that they don't really need the SEL in the sense of needing that extra support, but that it's even being helpful for them. So imagining how helpful it is for people who don't feel like they have connections outside of school.
And that's cool that he tells you about it and gives you anecdotal accounts of how it was.
Well, I also asked for it too. I want to know. it's my research to make sure that Caring School Communities is going well. But it is. And that's another thing when you're looking at, I think SEL to choose from, thinking about what the SEL provider or the curriculum writer, what they can actually do for you. Like, are they able to come and give you live professional developments? Are they able to coach you through, your teachers through implementing this? Because it's a lot easier to have buy-in when you're like, oh, and you're going to get support, rather than here's a packet of SEL, deliver it, figure out how to do it. And that can be really, really scary. What other types of information do you guys want to learn more about? We've got kind of looking at how to do SEL from a high school perspective. Some shaking heads of South City wanting that, and then also Redwood High School, you had talked about wanting to like how to embed it in a high school setting.
The question I had too is that included in that is that I'm hearing SEL in the classroom. I'd like to hear more about SEL as a counselor, and what role do I play as a counselor in SEL other than training and monitoring and stuff like that? Is there anything, what do I do as a counselor for SEL? I'd like to get more into that.
Okay. What about anybody else?
Well, I shared in my group, one thing I'm looking to is how to communicate effectively to teachers. And then in the end, I realized also our higher ups, that when kids are going through a lot of emotional stuff, that like academics can be put to the side and it's okay. Like while the most important part is getting those kiddos to feel good in their skin. And I feel like my teachers get that, but then they have the pressure of the next assessment coming and kids not being on grade level. And I always try to say, but it's okay, because that'll come when they're feeling good. We'll be able to catch them up. We'll be able to do all that. But if you're trying to do both, like that's too much for the kiddo, they can only do one at a time. So anyway, how to get that from the higher ups, because I feel like there's so much pressure on our teachers to have their kids on grade level and, doing these things, but it's not fair to the kids or the teachers to have that pressure, if that makes sense.
Totally makes sense. Yeah. I mean, you physically can't, and this is, we have CRIM training, the community resiliency model training, but I mean, science backs that up. You cannot think when you're dysregulated. Like your brain, part of your brain that you're using when you're dysregulated is your survival brain. And your limbic system is telling you right now is not a good time to do math because we need to survive this. So it's not even going to let your thinking brain come on to think. So it's a waste of the teacher's time and effort and their own thinking brain, right? Which they're forced to use, even if they're dysregulated.
Molly, could you tape all that? And then whenever this stuff comes up, I can
It is.
them?
Yeah, no, it's being recorded. It's being recorded right now. So you could just
trim it
on a feedback loop. And I've never been a teacher. So I think that's my, I'll be honest, I've never been a teacher and I've never been an academic or a school counselor. I've been a crisis counselor. So it's a little bit of a different lens. Like Marion, you were asking about like the social emotional piece. That's the counselor I was just, you come to me and you talk to me about your problems. I don't care what college you're going to. Like I don't need to write you a letter. I don't need to program you for next semester. I don't need to worry about that. I don't even need to call your parents to tell you I met with them. Like I'm just meeting you. So it was a little different, but yeah, I think we all need to focus on the fact that academics can't happen. I mean, think about like, I've just noticed in my own brain and my own dysregulation of like trying to do a million things and in the office and, trying to balance all of that this year, that I feel like my productivity is less because I'm having to deal with the impact of trauma from the past 2 years and holding people who have been traumatized, who have or working with kids that are traumatized, that it's this residual effect that science isn't allowing it to happen, meaning that our brain chemistry does not work that way. So any more information, and then I think we're going to do an optimistic closure, and we can end. Yeah, Katrina.
So I think one of the challenges also, and I think it's less in elementary, but I could be wrong because I do not currently work in elementary, is the teachers themselves sometimes need the social emotional learning, like they've had their own challenges. They do not feel equipped to be teaching it. They've already got so much else going on, what they're trying to do with their curriculum, that trying to ask them to do this is just beyond them. They feel overwhelmed even with the idea of it. And they themselves need their own social emotional development with all that's going on. So I think that's just an added level. And for us, like a lot of our schools don't have an advisory period on top of it. So it's just like class after class after class where we're just crammed. And because the kids are behind, we're trying to make sure they're going to be able to graduate at this point. And it's just, it's a lot of things we're trying to accomplish at once. And I think that teachers can get overwhelmed with all of it. And I know when I was teaching, that adding this to me, I would have been like, oh my God, like I'm going to try, and I'm going to try to incorporate it. But just getting them to be able to like read a paragraph was also a challenge. So I think that's an added level.
Yeah.
Yeah, Katrina and I work at the same district, and Molly, as you know, I work right under Shayna, and I just got CRIM certified like last week. We did the training. So I was telling Katrina that is something we're trying to do district wide, because that would be really helpful for the teachers, because you're dealing with your own stuff as well, and that's how that program works, right? But as Katrina talked about, like it is a challenge, and it's a challenge to get it, like actually deliver that to everyone and have the message that like this is something that we have to focus on. Because once you do it, you're like, oh yeah, I get it. This is helpful for me. I can see how it helped my kids. But to actually get to that step where you can implement for like a high school district like Katrina and I are at, it's a ton of people, and people are really stretched in with their time to like go to another PD. And as Connor was saying, you really need like whole organizational buy-in. Like it has to be like, okay, everybody, this is what we're all doing. Like from where I've seen it actually implemented and work, it's like top to bottom, everyone's like, this is what we're doing, there's no question.
I've noticed like Jefferson Union did a whole day where they had an hour and a half or an hour. I think it was maybe just an hour, which you would really kind of want more, but an hour is good, right? For kind of social, emotional, like mental health time at a district-wide PD. But they did CRIM, and so they had trained 15 trainers. So they used the 15 trainers plus some others that were trained in the county, and they all converged to do Zoom. It couldn't be in person, but to do Zoom trainings of about 40 staff per training. So it wasn't an overwhelming number, but they were able to train all 400 of their staff at the same time, because they did it, they did it that way with that many trainers. And so it took a lot of effort and a lot of energy to coordinate, but it's doable. And I know that PD is already set for this year, unfortunately, usually, and the times and the topics, but like looking towards next year when we go, and looking towards building the calendar for next fall, really being intentional and trying to push our districts to give us 3 hours of counselor-led PD, meaning what the counselors need teachers to know and hold. Here's what you have, right? So whether this is the SEL we're using and we're training you on it for an hour and a half, and this is CRIM, or this is CRIM plus this is adult SEL, so you can understand how you can be able to identify your own emotions that are coming up and your own dysregulation. So I think we could, like looking towards that, like planning wise, but we thought we were ready, right, this semester to meet everybody back, but I don't think we were optimistic about how students would be. and how it would be more normal than what we're seeing, I think.
This is just sort of maybe more of like an informal idea, but for a school, if you're in a situation where you feel like it's not doable at this point to really get a formalized SEL curriculum plugged in. I mean, this is maybe an overly simplistic idea, but for example, in English class, next time everybody's going to write like a 5-paragraph essay. You know, this is just an example, but let's say there's 25 kids in the class. The teacher could identify 25 different character traits or, you know, desirable characteristics, and each student could be assigned one, and they could do like their research on that, and they could write a 5-paragraph essay on that trait and then present it class-wide at the end. You know, that's again an informal way, but you know, better than nothing.
I mean, yeah, I mean, using like the I Am From poem, which Paul Forbes showed us. If you look up Paul Forbes, I Am From, it's a great way like for high school. So English writing, you know, being able to understand stanzas and poetry, middle school, right, where your identity is just freaking twirling, all of, you know, and then elementary with writer's workshop where you need to just practice writing, but little things. Yeah. And so what I like that. So what I take away from this is if we could bring you some really easily droppable nuggets of SEL on top of implementing district-wide SEL tier 1, but like even that teacher that says, I can't do this in my class. You could say, well, I know you can't do this, but could you do this? And here's how you would do this. So would that be helpful to try to find some good, like small little activities that could be grab bag buckets for teachers if they're asking for stuff, or if you only have a chance to go into one classroom or something to do, like a teacher gives you 10 minutes. Yeah. Okay, cool. So we'll look at that. And then the optimistic closure. You just want to jot in the chat box or share out loud. We talked about one thing you've learned, but let's list one person you can add to your phone list to call on a particular subject. Is there anybody on this call that you, or on, you know, on the Zoom that you think about like, oh, I might reach out to so-and-so about this?
Connor's my new best friend.
Connor's your new best friend. That's awesome.
Hey, I love it. Let's do it.
Connor, it's Christian, right? At Sunset Ridge, your counterpart?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not sure where my friends are at what schools they are. It's kind of confusing to me, but yeah, it's either Christian or Shannon.
I think it's Christian.
Mr. T, I think it's Christian, yeah.
Right, Mr. T. Yes, that's what the kids call him.
Right.
All right, let's see.
Evan's already used to me contacting him about questions, so that's a given.
Awesome. Thank you, Connor. And then I'll drop mine too, just so you have it. Because, you know, we are really trying to work on being accessible to you all, but also, you know, we previously didn't really have like an SEL department here, and then it blew up with the idea of like really needing it, especially after the pandemic and everything. And so with the MHSSA grant taking 12 of our districts and giving them SEL, we now are working on getting our other kind of something similar to all our other districts. And that has kind of been given to me. So, and Mary, so we're looking forward to.
Sorry to jump in.
No, go for it, please.
Sorry, I was a little bit late. I actually am with Middle College over at College of San Mateo. So I have a little bit of a different dynamic than what I guess I'm hearing from a lot of you guys, in that kids are based at a college, but they're high school students, right? So I have juniors and seniors. And I guess this may only ring true for the older groups, maybe middle school and high school, but we technically, our wellness team at CSM can't provide services to our kids because they're minors. but they have offered many times to come in and do like guidance lessons and let's talk about stress and let's talk about these things, right? And they've offered, you know, I don't know if that's just specific to like all the middle colleges or if they'd be open to helping in like other areas in the county. But if, you know, that's ever just an avenue that you haven't explored, like maybe one of the colleges, if Skyline's closer to you, if it's CSM, if it's Kenyatta, I know that they have a lot of people that do like to go out into the community and do presentations. So I just bring that up because it's a great resource for me in the fact that we don't have a full-time wellness counselor up here. So then it just leaves me as a school counselor to kind of be with a lot of teenagers that are just following COVID. As you guys know, it's a lot.
Yeah.
For them. So I just wanted to bring that up in case it would be helpful for anyone.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you for sharing your email addresses for each other. This way, I mean, if you please reach out post this meeting. Take a minute to complete the survey. The survey really helps us figure out where we want to drive this. I've written down some things too as well. I'm going to give you guys back 15 minutes of your life. That's my gift to you today. And I will see you guys